Okay, let's get going. All right. Excited to have everybody here. Thank you for joining for another awesome ecosystem business summit. And this one is about reimagining ecosystems. We're so excited. We have a great lineup and have a bunch of people joining. So welcome everybody. So we have folks joining from that have registered from a lot of technology companies, software companies, telecom. I'm looking at the logos here. Uh, what else? Global system integrators. We got just about everybody. Hardware company. Everybody is joining today. So really excited to have everybody joining and hearing about ecosystems and how to co-sell with your partners. We do have another poll. So we're launching another poll on the kinds of partner activities that you manage. So we'd love to hear from you about that. Just take a second and click on the poll and answer the questions there. One of the things that we really pride ourselves on and have just been really thrilled that we have so many senior partnership folks that join at these ecosystem business summits. A lot of directors, VPs, and even CXOs joining. So welcome everybody, and so glad to have you here. A couple of housekeeping things. You can actually add your photo in the platform, and if you ask a question, it'll actually pop up. We're going to show your question on the screen, and it'll show your photo if it's in there. But it just makes it a little more personal. Go ahead and introduce yourselves. I've said it a couple of times already, but please let us know where you're joining from. Ask questions. We love to hear from you. It makes it really interactive. We're going to ask our guests your questions, and we'll have polls throughout. And always just stay in the stage tab. That's where all the action is going to be for the sessions today. We have a few, documents, assets that we've created that are really valuable, and I think will be worth your time. We've got the QR codes. You can just hit them up with your phone and grab them there. On the far left, we have an ebook all about co-selling methodologies. So it's really, I think it's about a 50-page document on best practices for co-selling. It's so important to understand how to set up the right processes and organization to be able to co-sell with your partners. The one in the middle is co-selling with cloud providers. Really important to understand that. There's so much going on. AWS, Microsoft, and Google are doing so many, running a lot of programs, and with marketplaces to be able to co-sell with cloud providers is a critical learning. And then finally, we have the ecosystem maturity model, which is kind of helps you understand, first of all, in order to know where you're going, you got to know where you are. And so it puts just a framework for understanding, okay, here's where we are relative to the industry, to my peers. And so these are the kinds of things that we need to do in order to take the next step. Download any of those, and love to share that information with you guys. Okay, we have a fantastic lineup this morning. So excited to be to get going. I'm going to shut up here in a minute. We're going to start off with Amit, our president and co-founder. Is going to talk about the co-selling advantage, accelerating success with hyperscalers, ISVs, and GSIs, which is just setting the framework for talking about, sort of the state of the industry, some of the things that are happening. And Amit also has a couple of announcements, so stay tuned for that. Excited to hear that. And then we have Bronwyn Hastings. Bron is Corporate Vice President, Global ISV Ecosystem and Channels at Google. And Bron and Amit are going to be talking about driving ecosystem transformation together with your partners. So really just a great topic. We're so thrilled to have Bron and Google represented in the session today. And then we'll be transitioning and bringing in Zia Youssef. Zia is Senior Vice President, Strategic Ecosystem and Industry Solutions at VMware. And Zia actually is my old boss from a few years ago. And Zia and Amit are going to be talking about architecting ecosystems for customer success at VMware. And then we'll come back and just kind of recap. Amit and I will talk about learnings and takeaways from the day. So with that, I think we're going to just hear a little bit from some of our customers, and I will share that right now. So let's hear from customers and friends.
The power of partnership is unbelievable. The value you can create with partners, shared capital, shared go-to-market, shared client relationships, you can really unlock value quickly, and it shows up as growth. Yeah. That's ultimately how it shows up on the balance sheet.
We were dying in spreadsheet chaos and management of our business plans or shared goals or processes. Yep. How are we exchanging, people, processes, content? And you touched on there is legal sensitivity, but there is also competitive sensitivity as you exchange that information with your partners. So you sort of have to see the same data and the same goals through a unified set of perspectives. And that's where automation is key. And that's where you're not necessarily working within a company. You're actually working across hundreds of companies at this point. So what can be shared, what can't be, and you need to have the shared perspective and data to drive the right value for the customer. So that's why I think automation is really important, and I think that's why we have been working very closely together.
Workspan has been very critical for us, obviously, because the platform is monitoring and tracking all the business that we are doing. But most importantly, we also have the support of a sales desk. And so the sales desk are also regionally based. There are 5 people right now. We are looking at expanding that team. And essentially, they help us follow up and follow through the opportunities that we have tracked in Workspan together with the rest of the entities or companies that are participating in driving this deal.
People are comfortable with spreadsheets, but that's not the path that we can take. We need to digitize. We need to digitize, and we need to automate what we're doing. And if I can take just a moment to explain what that means in our co-sell world, it's about creating visibility to the pipeline. We work on the premise that if you don't see it, you can't manage it. What somebody needs to do is to go into Workspan and pull the report or look at a sales view, a sales plan view, and just consume the data. Really quickly discern, are we aligned on these opportunities that need to close this quarter? Are there discrepancies? If there are, go and action on those.
All right. With that, Amit, welcome, Amit.
Hey, Chip. What a joy to be here.
Yeah. So I'm going to leave it to you, Amit, and let you share some thoughts, and I'll step out and I'll come back. We'll be watching for questions. Again, ask your questions. Love to hear questions for Amit, and we'll chat as you wrap up.
Absolutely. Warm welcome from my side to everybody. We have an exciting lineup today and a set of announcements, so I'll be going through them very quickly. But I've always enjoyed getting the ecosystem community together. We used to do them physically at customer locations, NetApp, Google, SAP. All of you guys have hosted these in the past, and we look forward to getting back in the physical format as well shortly. But the online forum allows us to talk to so many people, so we seem to enjoy this as well. So today we'll talk about the co-selling advantage, especially focusing on hyperscalers, but also from ISVs and GSIs, because both of them also work with the hyperscalers and with each other. So it's a connected ecosystem world, if you see out there, all working towards the same end customer. So we recently did a state of co-selling survey with hyperscalers, and here's what we found. The top 3 benefits of working with the cloud providers, and we segregated the answer by each cloud provider, AWS, Microsoft, and Google. And what we found was it's really about the people. It's about the direct AEs introducing each other, talking about, how do we serve the shared customer together. And if you look at Google, for example, 81% valued this benefit out of Google field sales representatives and account managers working tightly with them. Next was, how do we then accelerate this co-sell motion with co-marketing? So joint marketing activities, because you have to have a joint position and joint marketing so that the customer hears the same story, especially if you look at the Gen AI message that's coming out. And next was the access to MDF, but also things like cloud consumption credits that are happening. And you can see minor variations there, but it was resounding. These three were the top three benefits that companies saw in working with each other. The next one was, we also asked about the top challenges, because this is not easy. And consistently, there are minor variations here or there, but you can see that it's difficult to get attention from field sellers at a hyperscaler or a cloud provider, right? How do you get attention in a digitized way? Because you have your own deal cycle to run. They have theirs, they have their priorities, and you have your priorities. How do you intersect? How do you connect? How do you get that attention together? Second is also kind of difficult to connect to partner development managers. They may be solution-based, horizontal or vertical, and having that knowledge and awareness with partner development managers of what you are providing and what value proposition you are bringing, that is key. And lastly, everybody's struggling with spreadsheets and manual processes, and this came out as the next big challenge. So there's a lot of benefit, but also a lot of challenge. And ecosystem automation, just as sales automation, marketing automation, and now ecosystem automation in this decade is coming in, the decade of the ecosystem that we talked about in previous EBSs. Ecosystem automation and hence ecosystem-led growth is something that we are looking forward to. So what can help here? And Workspan is a key solution in this space to drive co-sell automation, especially with the hyperscalers. But beyond that as well, it's not just for the top three clouds, but also for ISV ecosystem, your tech ecosystem, your GSI ecosystem, so across all partner types, essentially. And today we are very proud that 7 out of top 10 ecosystems use Workspan for co-selling. Close to $50 billion in joint pipeline is managed using this platform. And time and again, people come back and say, security is why we buy Workspan, because you need to securely share only the fields that you want to share from your CRM. You may have 200 plus fields. You may want to share only 25 of them. And that's your corporate policy. And so does somebody else. So being a neutral third-party arbitrator in middle, which has gone through your security processes, but also the partner security processes, and is liable and guarantees that to both, is the main reason why companies pick us. And the fact that you can then jointly work on those opportunities together is the automation that we bring to the table. So a lot of companies there, leading ISVs, fast-growing startups, services companies, telecom companies. We recently welcomed T-Mobile, for example, in the telecom space into Workspan, but also a number of other fast-growing startups as well. So definitely check us out. And I want to give you a couple of other things here very quickly around co-selling. So how does it work? So think of you on one side working with your CRM system, but when you face the partners, you may be working with, let's say, a GSI or a hyperscaler or an ISV partner. You need a shared space in the middle, which is your Workspan co-sell app, where you can put a joint partner plan. You can work on joint referrals or opportunities that you give to one another in a secure space, and have a place where you can actually run those joint cadence calls. And one of our speakers has done this thrice, and she's an amazing person in terms of digitizing this whole partnering process and putting very important metrics in place so that you and your partners work together. So the idea is get together, give visibility and automation to this sharing of joint pipeline and managing that joint pipeline together, but also measuring it. And now the ecosystem leader can confidently stand before their boards and actually show the impact that you bring to the table instead of using loose anecdotes, for example, to talk about this thing. And here's the key piece here on the announcement side. You knew that we did co-sell with AWS and Microsoft. Today, we are talking about Google. Bronwyn Hastings is going to come later. And we are in ramp-up phase with them. The first 5 partners are live. That went really well. We'll talk a little bit about that. And as we scale to the next 25, we are very excited to bring Google into the ecosystem. Next, we also went live with a couple of top GSIs, and this is really exciting. The biggest one that we have got going now is Kyndryl. And I was just there yesterday with the executive meetings, and delighted to see that they've chosen the platform for Workspan for all their co-sell partnerships. That includes all tech companies, ISVs, and cloud providers. Same with Deloitte and Wipro. So the same connection that you have on your CRM side connects to Workspan, connects to all the hyperscalers, but also to the leading GSIs in the world. And some of these GSIs are audit firms as well. So you can imagine the security processes on data sharing, especially from their CRM, is key for them. And Workspan having gone through that process, the certified to use process or the security processes around data privacy is very, very key. And you heard Hind talk about it in the video before. Akbar, Nick Holden at Google, and the entire partner leadership team there, Jose, they've established Workspan as a co-sell platform for Cisco as well. And I highlight that example because it's one of the first examples in the industry where we've scaled partner to partner co-sell, where it's not just Cisco, but Cisco's ISV ecosystem or hyperscaler ecosystem together with their channel ecosystem. So this multi-party co-sell is really, really key, and amazingly excited about the innovations that they're bringing to the table. So that's the first key announcement, co-sell for all partner types. It's not just for hyperscalers or adding Google, but also GSIs and ISVs put together. So the complete ecosystem story. And talking a little bit about the Google partnership, this is one of the key ones where our development team worked very closely with the Google partner engineering team and shared APIs directly from Google CRM, but also from the Workspan system. And we've established this bidirectional data sharing directly with the Google Vector system. Next is this automation of sending. And what really excited us and the team that was doing this was, before Workspan, close to 50% of manually entered opportunities did not have all the fields, were rejected often, did not result in the match. And what we did was, because of this automation, we've taken this to 99%. Just imagine 99% directly from your CRM, a huge amount of automation helping. This is bidirectional. So this is not just from inbound from the partner, but also outbound from Google. And another key capability we've done is looking at the volume of these companies. These are fast-growing data and AI companies often. It's not just one opportunity at a time, but bulk sharing. And we have put in automated workflows now where you can just simply say, hey, in your CRM, you can say if the partner is equal to Google, automatically register the co-sell opportunity. So you no longer need to manually do it for every opportunity. You can set a trigger in your CRM and the workflow will just take care of it automatically. Isn't that great? And we've really implemented this to be a design solution from a partner manager, but also from a seller perspective. And there are reports that are common across companies. So you're no longer fishing for data and saying, hey, where are we today? You just simply come to a dashboard that gets you this thing. And above all, this is an enterprise class and secure product. We went through the Google security process. It was intense, a year plus in security, just to understand how the systems and processes and data sharing would work. And it's a rigorous process that includes third-party penetration testing and so on and so forth. So while it was difficult going through it, now that we've done it, it's also a key value add as well. So very excited, and thank you to the Google engineering team for working with us, and we continue to work with us as we ramp. So we're growing from 5 to the next 25 companies, and then scaling it beyond later. Here are some comments from people who did this. I'm very excited that not just sales team members and partner managers, but the folks who are really the stars behind the scenes. Just as sales has sales ops, we have seen that you guys have partner operations team members. So, for example, a leading data streaming company mentioned that they're saving, in terms of an effort, they're reducing 70 to 80% of their of their work effort. And the streamlining and creating visibility of joint pipeline is a game changer for another leading software company in the platform. We are going to see these stories come out at Google next, so I'm not sharing the names here yet, but it's exciting to see that there are cost savings involved as well in sharing bidirectionally and automating that process. Another one on the top, on the rightmost thing that you can see is that they're anticipating 30 to 50% renewal growth. That's the growth at which you guys are operating. And when you're putting in so much manual processes, manually entering data is no longer an option. Automation, and especially these kinds of workflows to automatically share directly from your CRM, from the comfort of your CRM. You have a drop-down which just picks the hyperscaler partner within your own Salesforce, and it goes and registers in Google, but also with AWS and Microsoft, and with other ISVs, with Cisco, with SAP, with GSIs. So it's an extended story. And so that's the Google part. I'm really excited. We are going to talk to Bron a little bit later today and get some more insights about how they are thinking about the ecosystem motion, especially the GenAI and data ecosystem around it, and what kind of transformation is she driving there to achieve stellar results for customers, but also for partners. So wait and watch for that. Now, moving to the second piece of the announcement very quickly, this is around cloud marketplaces, and how co-selling has come together with the cloud marketplaces. It used to be two different teams, especially at hyperscalers. In all companies that seem to be the .com or digital sales arm of the business, this seemed to be more of the partnering arm of the business. All hyperscalers have kind of combined these teams together and brought really, if you're co-selling and you're at the top of the funnel, in the middle funnel, and kind of closing the deal, it makes sense to now transact that on the marketplace. The marketplaces are providing immense value. We are seeing that 1/3 of the procurement done today for the channel ecosystem will go through the marketplace, and this is huge numbers. We expect 45 billion in sales through the marketplaces. This is growing at 84% CAGR. And not just this, but the customers' cloud commitments are getting retired through marketplace transactions. And that becomes a new source of budget, new source of already pre-approved budget that you can go after. And that's really key. Jay McBain, who called out the decade of ecosystem earlier, he said, marketplace used to be a rounding error. Now it is such a big force that it cannot be ignored by any channel leader. And I think we are all happy, astounded, surprised, but at the end of the day, it's about doing business faster and better, and that's why co-sell and marketplace is a match made in heaven. And you all know the benefits of listing these solutions to the marketplace. So listing is usually the first step in the process. So it gives your solution, your joint solution that you worked on, visibility to a larger base. If you list on a cloud marketplace, like a Google marketplace or an AWS or a Microsoft one, it gives you access to immense number of customers. Many customers are pre-validated to buy from the marketplace, deploys quickly into their infrastructure, and you can start and stop these services. So a lot of benefit to the end customer as well. And especially if they're buying in bulk, they have consumption to beat down. And this gives you an expanded reach in the market, huge reach across the globe. And it streamlines your GTM as well, because you are not just building a product, you get a new avenue to launch it with the right co-marketing and the joint investments that go into the space. So I was earlier speaking with Jen Guski at SAP. She leads the business ecosystem around the endorsed apps and ISVs that do spotlight and validated solutions with them. She was talking about it's not just the co-sell piece, it's actually about the entire GTM with co-marketing and building a solution, make it repeatable. And I think marketplace is a key element of that thing. And lastly, streamline procurement. This is key. I've lost deals where we were simply not ready as a vendor. And marketplaces, these companies are already set up. The procurement process, the ability to stream through the procurement steps with the rights, processes that the marketplaces have offered, can really mean meeting your number or not meeting the number at the end of the quarter. So That's a great avenue. And this leads me to the second announcement for the day, which is Workspan is announcing a marketplace accelerator. This is an accelerator for quickly listing your solutions on the marketplace, making it transactable. We have the experience, the service, white glove service offering here for you guys to list your solutions on marketplaces. We'll create and manage the solution listings. These listings are your listings; they're never Workspan's listings, unlike what you see in the space today. And the idea is that you get a common platform that you do co-sell with, but also extend it to marketplaces now. So this is important from a full GTM point of view, with shared content and shared updates coming in one place. So very excited about that. We are launching initially with AWS, but also the other marketplaces are in design right now, and they are coming soon. The end-to-end vision for marketplaces is deep here at Workspan. So you saw the first pillar around co-sell opportunity management, where we manage 50 billion in pipeline, and automation is there. So that's already there, and it's available for ISVs, GSIs, and hyperscalers. This listing product we just announced today, and this will help you simplify the listing process and manage it. But very soon, we are coming up in the October timeframe with the private offer workflows as well. So the private offer workflows are in beta right now. We are working and testing with our internal releases and first initial beta customers. And the idea is very simple: offer a private offer process, extending right from your co-sell workflow. You'll be able to extend a private offer to an end customer. The end customer can actually accept it, and it will reflect on the co-sell deal being closed through a marketplace transaction. And there are very important metrics that are being captured as a result of this. One of the key metrics that is important from a hyperscaler or cloud provider point of view is how much of my co-sell business is actually moving over to marketplace transactions. So we can actually capture that. How much of it is inbound versus outbound? Maybe inbound converts higher on marketplaces from these hyperscalers. So we would be able to do those kinds of data-driven decisions because we are now finally connecting the transactions to the co-sell piece. And lastly, the insights, the attribution, what kind of companies buy through the marketplace and how it's coming out. This is key. And you already know the Workspan reporting is very rich and deep and secure. We are adding the transactions that are coming through the marketplace into that insight. And with GenAI capabilities coming in, we are able to now make smarter predictions. So we'll get this out there in terms of the complete vision and picture for you guys, so that you can do the end-to-end co-sell journey. And next, as part of this exercise, if you think about the marketplace listing process, it is an extension of our joint solution process, where you can take an idea to market, and the idea can come from an ISV partner of yours, like it did in VMware's case. So VMware is just launched the ecosystem solution hub there, and the solution hub, using VMware multi-cloud capabilities, ISVs, telcos, service providers, they build new solutions with VMware. So the entire idea to launch process is now part of VMware Partner Connect 2.0. Zia is coming on later on. We'll talk a little bit about this. We'll touch on this topic, but it doesn't stop here. These solutions need to go get listed on external marketplaces, and that's exactly what Workspan and VMware is doing together, starting with the AWS marketplace, but soon being available for all other marketplaces as well. So exciting proof points around both these announcements. Google with the first one around co-sell, and VMware with the next one around marketplace accelerator. We are very, very excited to work with these innovators in the ecosystem space. And that's very, very key to kind of see the overall vision of what we are driving in the market. And this is the last slide, and we can quickly glance through this. So oftentimes we are asked, where do we start, right? We are on an ecosystem journey. We want to work with different kinds of partners, not just channel partners, ISVs, GSIs, service partners, domain SIs, managed service providers, and ISVs. Now, looking at a larger ecosystem, where do I start? ultimately it's about growth. It's about automation so that you can drive a growth story for your company, right? And it's about serving those end customers so that you grow together. So we recommend the starting point to be co-sell, referral, and opportunity management, because it directly gets you on a partner plan with joint opportunities with each other. And you can directly show the impact to your CRO, to your board, of what does partnering really bring to the table. So that's the first starting point we recommend. Then you can hop into things like account mapping as an example, where you now want to accelerate this process. You already have opportunities where you're working together in key accounts. What if we could add more accounts to this? So you map those accounts, and we have our friends at Crossbeam and Reveal who do those pieces, and we are partnering with them so that you can bring those account maps into Workspan to do what we call account planning. So account planning is essential because now you've opened the gates with your partner manager and your account leads, and now you're doing the co-sell orchestration for top accounts. And lastly, don't stop with the co-sell journey here. We talked about private offers and insights coming out of those offers as the next piece. So that top row is where you start. Start with co-sell referral management, extend it with account mapping and account planning, close the deal with private offers, and then get the insights back. So that's where we start. But the journey doesn't stop there. If you look at the full solution map below, it's about extending that GTM with joint marketing as well, joint campaign management, for example, having a shared repository for these marketing things. Come one step below, you want to have not just your solutions, but also aligned solutions listed. This is where you are co-creating things like VMware is doing, but also listing it in those marketplaces. And incentives play a key role. So just look at co-sell as an example. You want to provide a co-sell incentive to your partners. So adding those capabilities, especially around a customer cloud journey, like VMware has done. Tracy and Palmer and team have done an amazing job taking the co-sell journey and giving incentives alongside that journey to the channel partners, for example. And all of this, not just on point products, but on a shared network. And we have a fundamental belief here at Workspan that for other lines of business, it can be a SaaS solution. And for partnering professionals, it has to be a SaaS solution as well. But we, in addition to being a SaaS solution, need to be a network, because as a community, as people who are working with partners across the board, you want to connect with one another. It has to be a SaaS application that is based on a network principle, much like LinkedIn, as opposed to an isolated system that has, a version for every company, a deployment for every company that's completely isolated. So that's why it has to be a network SaaS application. So thinking about your company profile, how you connect with others, how do you do it with security and data sharing processes, and onboarding and offboarding of such relationships. I think that network layer is really key. So that's our entire vision and solution map that we are prosecuting. Some places Workspan is building on its own. Many places we are partnering ourselves to deliver this capability. For example, in the training and certification space, we are partnering with Docebo, which is a learning management solution. And this is key to kind of how you educate the partners. So you'll hear more about our entire roadmap in coming sessions, extremely focused on co-sell, and recommend the referral management as a starting point. So with that, I would love to close this session and Chip, bring you back in. If you have any questions that came out of the announcements today and what Workspan does in the marketplace, I'm happy to do that.
Oh man, do we have questions? A lot of questions. That was great, Amit. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to try and pick and choose a little bit because we won't be able to get to everything right now. But let's start with, we had a question from George Jackson, but then it was sort of added to from Gianluca, our friend based in Milan, I believe it is, but in Italy. So can you manage a multi-partner co-sell opportunity, say, among ISV, SI, and cloud provider?
Yeah, absolutely, Gianluca. In fact, Cisco is a key company doing this already on our platform. And the fact that it is based on the network, which was the underlying principle I last spoke about, to an opportunity, you can bring any number of companies. 3 is just a number. It could be 4. For example, in a telecom 5G use case, it could be even 5 or 6 companies. 2 is mind-boggling. 3 is amazing. But there are companies and scenarios where we could even go higher.
And then Nicole actually added to that and said, you know, how do each of the partners get paid out if you have multiple partners?
Yeah, attribution is very key. So if you look at the SAP use case, for example, they do partner splits on their co-sell opportunities. You can attribute, if there's 100% attribution, you can divide and say, hey, this partner is 25% of that value.
Nicole also said, how does this affect the seller's quota retirement?
Yeah, these are alignment questions that we are all figuring out and have figured out, actually. So most cloud companies, and we can ask this question of Braun when she comes on board, the partner sellers actually retire their quota on partner SKUs. So not just on first-party solutions, but also on second-party solutions, they retire their entire quota. And we are doing the same as a small company like ourselves. We are doing the same. If there are partner offerings that we put on our SKUs, our sales team actually gets quota retirement on not only our listed items, but also on our partner items.
Yeah. And of course, it has to be transacted through the marketplace for that to happen.
Yeah.
Typically. Maybe one last question. And this one's about the announcement. Will private offers be available through Workspan for all cloud provider marketplaces?
Yeah, we're working on that roadmap. Starting with AWS first, they released the APIs first. So far, a lot of these private offers were manual processes in the industry, while there was an illusion of an application, but behind the scenes, it was really manual submitting these things. So AWS was very early on kind of ready with their APIs, shared it with us, and we are working very closely with them to kind of release a product in this space. So it'll be fully automated, and we have others on the roadmap as well.
Awesome. Amit, this has been fantastic. Before we bring Braun in, we're just going to hear from a couple more customers. And Braun, get ready. You're on deck. See you in a second.
For those of you that are thinking about Workspan, just the elimination of spreadsheets, the ability to interact and collaborate on a specific deal. That's not sort of the center of the goal, but its impact alone is pretty valuable. Because you've got traceability, you've got at least a common set of agreed upon pieces of data. You've got control of what you need, and that's been impactful for us.
Increased our revenue through marketplaces by more than 10x over last year, and I'm expecting similar growth through the marketplace next year. Well, not 10x next year, but expecting growth there again is because we're monitoring and seeing that our sales cycles are lower. I mean, this is one of the reasons we went with Workspan, because frankly, my team couldn't manually enter the stuff in the partner deal registration systems fast enough. It's just too manual. So Workspan lets me go, oh, if it's in the POC stage or this and this in our sales cycle, push it into the partner portal. And that lets me force that influence side of the equation, and then I can monitor it.
The obvious is how much business have we closed together? What does our pipeline look like? Those are, as old as it gets in enterprise software. Sources of the revenue, who brought the opportunity to the table? Was it Wipro? Was it the technology vendor? I'm happy to say that on that front, we're working closely with Workspan, and we've enabled with you guys bi-directional pipeline sync and lead sharing, which has actually begun to bear fruit as well. So those are table stakes.
But you can only hire so many people, right? So we look for automation, which is where Workspan came in. There are constant updates that need to be made to each opportunity. And without Workspan, we wouldn't be able to do that. We wouldn't be able to scale for the growth that we are projecting, which we did a poor job of in the beginning. We grew before we scaled. Now we're stepping back and looking at, to hit these growth goals, what do we need to do to scale in the beginning? And that's through automation and going digital.
Okay. All right, Braun, Welcome.
Hi. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to see you. And I think with that, I'm just going to step out and let you guys take it away.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chip. Warm welcome to you again, Bron. So thank you being on this journey with us and leading and being a shining light in the ecosystem world. So Bron, as we know, is corporate VP ecosystems and channels at Google. And I'm delighted to speak with her. So, I wanted to quickly start off with this. You've been a data-driven ecosystem leader all through, but now this Gen AI ecosystem is also coming in, and Google is kind of at the forefront of this. I just want to get your thoughts right off the bat on how is Google thinking about the Gen AI ecosystem, and what are you guys doing differently about promoting the overall ecosystem story there?
Thanks, Amit. I thought I'd just add a few comments before I jump into that question, if I may. Firstly, congratulations on all the announcements and the progress you're making. If I think about what I heard summarized was streamlined processes, removing the friction of how you operate both internally and externally, solidifying some of the motions for acceleration, and then you keep on adding and expanding to be that shared space in the middle. So congratulations on that. That's what I heard from the summary of what you were talking about before. So let me jump into the Gen AI topic. And I did smile, Amit, when you spoke about a year-long security journey, because the first thing I'm going to say on Gen AI is our key focus continues to be about that trust, responsible, and accountable Gen AI with security at the core. For all of us in the Gen AI world, that should be the mantra we work with, because it's so exciting. It has such possibility, but it also has that trust, responsibility, security, and accountability needed for it to genuinely play its role in the businesses that we are in. So where we're looking at is really to try and solve the customer's complex problems in the industry. That's where we're going. And, we all know this in the industry. Customers continue to try to take their companies on transformational journeys. And they are picking Google to help them solve the most complex, high-value problems. We continue to have a partner first at the core principle of our strategy. And there are two things. When you put these things together, we're working closely with partners to build what we class as an industry value network to address our customers' complex problems. And I was listening to how you spoke about, we need a network effect. Partners need to be able to come together in that networked effect. And it's no different in this. We really have to have the ability to accelerate our time to value by building and taking market solutions with the highest value in that industry, with an end-to-end way of integrating those solutions, whether it comes from Google and ISV data providers and SIs, and bring that together in an orchestrated way that really accelerates the time to value for the customer. So let me take a healthcare example. Unfortunately, it still continues. We saw the start in COVID, but nurses burnout is a critical issue, and it continues to be an issue as we move forward. Imagine virtual nursing capabilities augmented with Gen AI capabilities that can be deployed to supplement the work of a traditional nurse. What do I mean by that? You could, let's use an example of when a patient needs help, and visual imaging can be used before a nurse even physically steps up to the patient. It's this combination of Gen AI and human in the loop. These two things interacting all the time. Another example is during a discharge of a patient, or the healthcare example, of course, from a healthcare facility, is preparing comprehensive discharge notes. They can be time consuming. I have had a very bizarre, I won't mention exactly what happened, but on a discharge with a family member, what they put on the discharge was, mind-boggling, actually. So how can we really bring these things together with an industry value network for virtual nursing? Imagine that. Leveraging, in some instances, perhaps it's a first-party Gen AI platform that we bring pre-built models with AI and other data capabilities, you bring that together. Imagine going a step further than that and having even a one Google story where you add Fitbits or Android devices. So that's sort of the first party piece. The second part of it is where you bring partners together. So you could integrate an industry-leading smart care platform such as Care AI. And then the third piece of that is bringing, I'm going to use a partner name as an example, leveraging someone like Quantify, who integrates and has domain of that IP and industry to deliver the end-to-end solution. So you've got first party, third party, even methodology solutions, data, GenAI, all coming together in an orchestrated way to answer the largest question. So everyone can play, but how do you orchestrate, and how does GenAI and data fit within that context, because it actually interoperates everywhere across that domain. So that's sort of the first one I would sort of use. The second one, I'll just give a quick example, is like financial services built on top of GenAI to solve the pressing customer challenges of. The first one is personalized financial recommendations. We've all been around a long time, and we hear people say, this hyper personalization. But this is the time that hyper personalization can become real, because you can think of tailored financial product recommendations via conversational language that are hyper personalized and reinforces the principles of, just think about this, the principles of me experience. You know how often we don't feel like someone knows us when we call into places or we're leveraging things. So, GenAI brings some of these things to the fore. The last example I'll use is document search and synthesis. You can use GenAI, a relationship manager could quickly identify relevant contract clauses that are needed to be updated, and then generate that tailored communication to notify the customer of that change. So it's that hyper personalization, me, being created as a combination. So I have a few things I usually like to pose questions, and excuse my voice, by the way, I've just got a bit of a hoarse throat today. I really believe we have to ask ourselves as an ecosystem, where can we additionally jointly leverage our core capabilities? Whether it's services, 1P, emerging AI technologies or solutions to answer complex customer problems. Second question, what industries, geographies, sub-industries, use cases can we immediately reap the benefits from of these industry value network type approaches? And then the last question I'll leave you with is, how do we increase our pace for time to value and time to revenue? It's about increasing pace to value. We now move through the industry with the ecosystems that need to come together in that network effect. So those are some of the thoughts on GenAI. They're very unique, but also similar. But that trust and that accountability and security has to underpin it all.
Well, fantastic. What a deep answer there, Bron. Really appreciate all these insights coming in, and thanks for doing this despite your voice. We can hear you clearly, though.
Thank you.
So I know you included some of these, data and analytics and AI companies in the initial co-sell work that we did together, right? But, what is... and you mentioned how these solutions need to come together literally on the fly, where you're literally building on top of each other. So as a result, how your partnering is changing. So what's your message to ISVs about how Google is itself changing to partner up better, to bring solutions faster to market, or make sure that they are the right ones for the customer with security, for example?
Yeah, I'm gonna sort of combine two answers, if I may. In this is, how are we driving our transformation, and then I will add, which is sort of a secondary question of what you're saying. Is how are partnerships changing as a result of that transformation? So if I may, I'm going to sort of break it up into two, if that's okay. We've got so much going on. you might have got the gist from the previous answer. We really do believe at Google Cloud that the customer is the center of the ultimate measure of success. And it sounds cliche because everyone says the customer's at the center. But from our perspective, we're focused on how can partners serve the customer to drive success in partnership with our teams. And that's the core of what we're trying to do. Are customers getting what they're expecting and needing to get that value and acknowledge it by how we are working with our ecosystem and the customer? So that's the first sort of higher level. And what I say is, as customers continue to go through their digital transformation, I would say this in general, right now, in particular with GenAI being the topic and data and, some of the conversations I will share with you, I have had right now are the most unusual conversations I've had in an ecosystem and an IT environment ever. I mean, I'll pose a few questions for you, then I'll come back to where I was going with this. Someone said to me recently, when an algorithm is training an algorithm, who owns the IP? And the second thing they said to me is, when you take data, and we always believe in keeping the data unique to the customer, it doesn't train our models, it stays with the customer, so it's safe and it's actually theirs. But when the data is used in algorithms and develops additional data, the question was, when does it become synthetic data, and who actually owns that? Think about those conversations.
Yeah,
those are unique conversations. So what the customers are telling us is they're looking to do digital transformation, but they're looking for partners with very deep domain knowledge. They're looking for someone to act as a strategic counsel and support them in their journey. We also know that, in most customers, there are at least 7 partners in that customer. Yep. So how do we come together, right? What does it, they don't want to buy software anymore. They want to buy software with a clear understanding of some of these things that come together to actually give them the value and answer these questions they're needing to answer right now to do their digital transformation. So what we're doing in our partner programs as well is we're transforming something like the Partner Advantage program and the initiatives that run through it to really up-level customer experience. We're raising the bar on customer excellence through specialization, through things like delivery readiness indexes, where it'll help a partner know, are they ready to go into a customer on a particular domain? It's about enabling it, not being punitive about it. We're making things like challenge labs available so people can go and test their skills on these combinations before they have to turn up. You don't want to turn up at a customer and you perhaps have other skills, but you have no knowledge about the priority you're in. You want to turn up and really show that value immediately. So we're putting a lot of emphasis on that customer excellence of delivery and specialization. We're evolving the economics around sourcing and accelerating time to value, not just selling. So we're making it a more comprehensive life cycle management. Many of the things that you were talking about, right? Yep. Sourcing, referral, co-sell, then actual acceleration of value, which is also acceleration of revenue. So bringing that value together in the life cycle, bringing new badging mechanisms in so that people in the industry can understand the competency that exists, focused on building those pre-packaged repeatable solutions like the Industry Value Network, which is a combination of ISVs, SIs, and first-party products. Designing new ISV portfolios, because GenAI brings a whole lot of new IP capability to add value and differentiate with partners. And I'll use a GenAI example. In March, we announced our private preview and immediately began working with partners. And we announced, areas such as Box, SAP, Twilio, Salesforce in a matter of weeks. And there's tons more coming. So how do we bring the best of that innovation and customers across all industries together in an orchestrated way, but with that customer excellence at the center? So that's the sort of the what are we changing? And I think the second part of what you really asked me, if I may, is to go to how are partnerships changing as a result of this transformation. I think that's where you're also trying to get to underneath all of this. So you can't only put the customer at the center, we also have to put the partner at the center of doing that. So how do we bring the network of partners surrounding that value at every stage of the transformation together? And we all know in the industry, the lines have been blurring forever, where a GSI or a global system integrator builds an asset that could actually be seen as an ISV solution, or an asset that is packaged to the point of being able to create the value as an asset. Resellers are becoming service partners are building IP, they look more like ISVs and co-selling, and all of this is coming together. So triangulation between providers and ISVs, and you said it really well. I took a note of, you said multi-partnering, co-selling. Kind of at the center of where we're needing to get to, with all of these motions and lines blurring further than they have before, and then add in data flow between these things and data providers. So I would say triangulation between service providers, ISVs, and ourselves in a multi-partner co-sell motion has never been more important.
Fantastic, Bron. So if I get the drift, the GenAI is fundamentally translating and transforming industry value networks, and new value is getting created. With the customers in the center, Google itself has kind of created and transformed to meet that customer transformation journey that you're seeing. And as a result, how you're partnering is changing. I want to take that a little bit under the covers. So you'll have to drive a lot of change at Google itself to make sure you're showing up as a better partner. What are some of the initiatives you are driving that gets to that next level of Google partnering differently?
I'd say, we as a product company have always had an open platform strategy. So we embrace an open ecosystem. We embrace the fact that we work even cross hyperscalers, right? We work cross hyperscalers, cross partners. We really embrace that open ecosystem strategy across all engagement models. So I was listening carefully for some of your announcements and where you're going, all engagement models. And it requires a lot of collaboration between teams internally and externally. We talked about that customer experience being our ultimate measure of success, but we equally want to focus on the partner experience. So, for me, and I've been a proponent of this, and it just becomes more important by the day. We need to look for tools and technologies that allow bidirectional engagement. You need to create transparency. And I think it was the lady from SAP that said on your customer video, you can't manage what you can't see, right? And I've been a proponent of that for a very long time. It's about
I'll let Marie Booth know that. That was Marie Booth, Bronze. I'll let her know this. She would be excited and stoked to hear it.
And so we've got to simplify the collaboration so that we can accelerate the time to value. We shouldn't be spending our time facing each other. We should be simplifying, taking friction out of it, and making sure that we focus on the customer and accelerating the time to value. So we're excited about the pilot with WorkSpan, and focus on elevating and driving efficiency with our ISV co-selling program, and excited about seeing what the opportunities are ahead of us as well. Co-sell is such a big focus for us, and it allows us to elevate both the Googler's experience and the partner's experience and the customer's experience at the same time. So my team will tell you one of my favorite mottos over the years, and I've already said it, and I'm sure many of the other ecosystem providers feel the same. You cannot measure what you cannot see. The starting point is transparency. So tools like Workspan have helped us track and measure the success that we're having today, and this is important, flag areas when more work is needed.
Yep.
So, we're looking to expand all of this. We're looking at how the industry value network, the build on AI programs, and all of these things can come together with the right tools, driving that collaboration and transparency for the ecosystems that we work with.
Fantastic. If I may add, it's been fantastic working with the Google team. It's an open ecosystem, but at the same time, how you co-build ourselves, right? Talking about that journey to build a joint solution together. We ourselves experiencing that acceleration. Then how do we co-sell, right, this out? And how you've partnered with other ISVs, especially in the pilot program that we saw, tremendous acceleration. It is transformative to see how quickly an account executive who's sitting in their own CRM is able to work in real time with Google. This is crazy. And I think that acceleration, that speed actually takes away that dogma sometimes that, hey, partnering will lead to a more complex or a longer deal cycle.
Yes.
Here it's actually accelerating it, right?
Well, it's removing friction and streamlining the process so you can actually focus on what's important, which is actually winning at the customer and bringing the value.
And then a lot of good conversations around how do we kind of change the incentive model around it, right? So if co-sell is taking off, how do we even accelerate that process with the right incentives in place? So very exciting, Bron. Thanks for this announcement and work with us. And if we look at just this co-sell piece and joint pipeline, you've been around this at multiple companies and worked with GSIs and ISVs, and now the big ecosystem expansion with GenAI. What do you want to leave this audience with? Because people are on a similar journey here. They're all trying to understand co-sell and how and where to start. So if you have any words around where to start, starting points, and any takeaways that you've had doing it, 3 times over in many places.
Yeah, it's certainly been a journey. I do want to just come back to, co-sell is the start of the journey and how you represent yourself to the customer. And it also tells them how you're going to work together in driving that customer success and value creation across the entire life cycle. It's the first experience they have of you, right? Is when you start to co-sell. It's representative, especially if you're going to be the one providing the service at the end, of the type of experience that they can expect in driving customer success. So think about that one. The second one is more to do with deep domain knowledge and competency and quality. It's never been more important to have that deep domain knowledge to bring transformation to bear, and to be able to be that strategic counsel that the customers want the partners to be. It's never been more important, because the topics that people are trying to struggle with and making transformation real are actually quite confusing at times these days. So your domain knowledge is so important. And then the third thing I'd leave you with is an open ecosystem, and collaboration is key for success. The network of value creates the network of success. We can all do our individual things, and we can. But imagine the world where now you become the person that anchors, for example, the data that's actually working between solutions, and that it's generating the value that is actually driving the efficiency and growth of a company. It means we have to, as an ecosystem, come together as a network effect of value at the same time. So those would be the 3 things I would leave everyone with.
And Ron, here as a community, we pride ourselves in learning from each other. So there are a lot of partner leaders, but also a lot of people who are starting in partnerships. Partnerships is a cool profession now, if you can believe it.
Yep.
So a lot of people who are just coming straight out of college, business schools and things like that, getting into partnerships, because it gives them a general management kind of experience managing a joint product or a joint marketing or a joint selling initiative. So I'm looking for, what advice would you have for these people who are choosing this as a career path and are emerging partner leaders, if you will?
Oh, this gives me a chance to talk about my mumbo jumbo. I'll start with the business side of it. Careers in partnership and ecosystems are unique. And I will say this carefully. We are a community of an ecosystem community here, but I always remind the team that they touch every part of the business. And you must understand both how every part of your business world works and every part of how a partner's business works. And you put those two things together, then you've got to look for the unique overlap areas that you can actually build a business from. And so I say you really do need to have deep business and economic value domain knowledge as a channel person. It is a career now to be a channel person, but you need to not only be a channel person. You have to know how a business runs across the board and then apply it into partnering. So that's sort of my one thing. Most people that know me, I usually push really hard at not only seeing a partner world, because it gives you blind spots of how do you service customers over here? How do you actually fulfill something over there? How do you get to a market over there? Have a very well-grounded knowledge across all business. That's number one. The second thing for anyone that I speak to, specifically if they're younger in their career or earlier in their career, I often talk about hard skills versus soft skills. And everyone spends so much time, focusing on product domain knowledge and, being able to position a company, and they don't spend enough time on what would be classed as soft skills. So I asked a team last night in APAC that I was presenting or discussing with, actually having a conversation with. And I said, what's your main job? And of course, everyone gives you, I'm a technical person, I'm this, I'm that. I'm like, actually, what you do most of the time is talk to influence people. Right. So why do we not spend enough time on those sorts of skills? So, I really, really, in any team I'm in, spend time investing in the power of communication and the influence drivers that serve your career, your value, and the people around you. So I'm going to summarize 5 areas very quickly that I talk about. Born skills versus learned skills. All of the communication skills are actually learned skills. Mm-hmm. So spend time on it. Spend time on it. And then my second little ditto, I say, I used to tell my daughter, people used to tell her practice makes perfect. And I say it doesn't. Perfect practice makes perfect. If you're consciously practicing all the time, then you perfect it. You have to actually be conscious about it. So that's my born versus learned skills. Second one I would say is model off what good looks like. We spend so much time defending our position versus modeling off good. And you can learn just as much from bad and learn what you don't want to do or what you don't want to have. So the second is model. Sit in every meeting. Now, everyone's going to never sit in a meeting with me. Sit in every meeting, not only listening to content and context, but also looking about how people are actually getting the result in the meeting. And where could you learn something from being present in that meeting and how to build that brand of presence. The third thing, and I've only got 2 more after this, thing is self-nominate versus being nominated. Right. Throughout my career, you emulate what good looks like, and then people start to you notice, but you also have to step in. Step into the opportunities of being the leader on something or leading in a partnering world, which can be really complicated.
Yeah.
Last two. These are my career ones, my mumbo jumbo, as everyone likes to tease me. I don't know how many times I've had career discussions where someone says, I don't feel empowered. And I often have the conversation of, why does someone need to make you feel empowered? Why don't you just believe you are? Right? Why don't you just believe you are? Turn up authentically. Turn up believing that you are empowered and you can actually move a whole lot of things out the way. And then lastly, leadership is so much about bringing people with you and making sure that they are coming along. So how do we all become that inclusive leader that actually brings people with us at every level in our career? So those are my 5 core principles. I say, apart from the first one, which I talk about, partnering is unique. You've got to use every ounce of your skill to make partnering successful. But how do you do that? You've got to have all these core elements of skill that you bring to the top every time. So I'll leave you with that, Amit. That's my little...
Fantastic, Bron. I've learned so much from you over the years. Thank you for these insights. I'm sure the community loves them. And I personally learned. And my big takeaway today is, model what good looks like. Yeah. And I really feel like we can practice this in partnering, and especially in our jobs, a lot more. Big takeaway. With that, I want to open up. There are a lot of questions people want to ask you, Bron. Yeah. So I want to open it up.
I wanted to answer the question that you got asked earlier about compensation.
Yeah, exactly. There are a lot of questions, Chip, right?
This was
all of these. So, Bron, I may send you a list of these questions, so if you can get the answer, we'll get a blog out on this so we can answer these questions via that.
Yeah, this was great. I also liked your Bron. I liked your comment about self-empowerment.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Take back control. So that's awesome. I wanted to actually start with kind of more of a comment from Nicole, and I love this. Also, was when you were talking about partnering as a profession and needing to understand all parts of the business. It really is like being a CEO of your general manager of your business with a partner.
Well, it is. I mean, I spend my day going between, everyone says, how do you do it? But it's because you have to think of it like you're building businesses. You're not only building a one-to-one partnership. And I spend my day understanding how legal looks at something, how, understanding how sales looks at something, understanding how finance is going to treat it, how that's a business. That's purely a business, right? And then saying, what is your direction? Zia knows this, and he's next, I know. I say to them all the time, I say, Zia, tell me what your strategy is without us. Don't try and tell me what our strategy is. Tell me what the strategy is without us. Now I can hear where the intersect points are into what our strategies are. And the natural intersects where you can build becomes the strength of acceleration. If you're trying to make someone do something they're not planning to do or is not natural, it gets harder. But it takes every ounce of your business skill to access that the whole time.
That's awesome. Awesome. Here's a question. This question is about measurement. How does Google measure the success of its ecosystem transformation initiatives, and what metrics or indicators do you use to assess the impact of partnerships?
Yeah, it's no different to most of what people use, and I'm going to answer that compensation one in the process of this question. We do use resell as but revenue, we use resell, we use revenue acceleration, we use co-sell, we use all of those normal asset builds, we use capacity and quality. And that's where we're moving to the DRI, the delivery readiness indexes. So we use all of that. But, it's a little bit more sophisticated than that. Where is the partner supposed to lead? Where are we supposed to lead? how do we know that those things are happening? So I try not to oversimplify it. The output is always revenue in a cloud world, revenue acceleration, whether it comes through resell or co-sell, because the actual revenue is irrelevant of where it's sold. It's the partner that's servicing it to get that acceleration becomes imperative at that point. So revenue acceleration is always one. The second one that we always measure to make sure that quality is present is NPS. Are you actually equipping the partners with the capability to do what's expected? And in our case, where we've got a partner first in many instances, it is so important that the NPS stays high. So we test NPS after each implementation is happening or through it, as well as an aggregate score, and to see if we're moving in the right direction. And you can see it when something's new, it tends to get a little, when you get good at the motions, it improves. And then when you get good at the enabling or the asset builds or those sorts of things, it gets even better. So, I would say it's no different to anyone else, but we anchor on revenue acceleration, time to value, and customer satisfaction at the core.
Awesome. This has been fantastic. Bron, thank you. Great session.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I am happy to answer any other questions you want to send me afterwards, Amit and Chip. I'm fine to do that too. And I know I've delayed Zia, so Zia, sorry for that.
We're bringing Zia in here as well. You guys know each other quite well.
We do.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
We do.
It makes me super nervous to go after you, Bron. And I've been listening to your comments, and I'm like struggling to see how I'm going to add value here, but we'll try.
Oh, I'm sure you're going to be fantastic at it, Zia. You always are. So thanks everyone. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, Bron.
Warm welcome, Zia, to the stage here. Look forward to this conversation.
It's awesome. I'm going to step out and let you guys take over.
Great.
Yeah. Zia has had, he's a senior VP for strategic ecosystem and industry solutions at VMware. And prior to that, Zia has an stellar experience having a ringside view of the entire ecosystem industry. So as a CEO of Streetline, a partner at BCG, managing ecosystems at SAP previous to this, leading the corporate strategy and design thinking team. I want to get to design thinking and architecting the modern ecosystem a little bit later, Zia, so heads up. First, amazing career across the board, having a ringside view. Maybe just one question around just the evolution of partnering as you've seen it. What are your thoughts on this? When did you begin in partnering versus where you're at, and you've had this view? What do you think about this transformation of this profession itself?
No, it's a good question. Yeah, you're kind of highlighting my potential age here, Amit, which is not great. But as you know, and I've known you and Chip for a long time. When I kind of started this journey at SAP, I think it's almost like 18, 20 years ago when I led the ecosystem work there. And I think there's probably 2 or 3. I mean, a lot has changed right now. I mean, the obvious things are the technology's changed. The sophistication of how you need to manage the ecosystem has changed. The data availability and what you can do with that has changed. We've kind of gone from managing everything literally on paper to kind of Excel sheets. So now you've got fully integrated systems, including the kind that amazing stuff that Workspan is doing. I think there are probably a couple of things that have not changed, right? And Bron has mentioned some of these. First of all, is you're not partnering just for the hell of it, right? And it's still amazing, Amit, how many companies issue press releases, do other announcements. They get maybe half a day or a week of a pop of like, this is fantastic, these 2 companies are coming together, and then nothing happens, and then that just fades into the background. And there's still way too much of that happening, right? And as we kind of get deeper into this conversation, So I think what hasn't changed is you have to create value. I mean, first of all, you have to create value for your joint customers. And that has not changed, should never change. That's why you're partnering, right? The other thing that hasn't changed, should not change, is it really is about people. I mean, we spend a lot of time talking about technology. We spend a lot of time talking about the products and how these things will come together. I'm a strong believer at the end of the day, whether it's a customer relationship or partner relationships, it's about like-minded people coming together, creating magic, taking a personal risk internally in their company. I mean, all of that stuff is what leads to amazing partnerships. Because if you're doing it right, you are extending beyond your skis. You're taking more of a risk. You're doing something that hasn't been done before. And if all that is true, then that's also true from a personal perspective, right? So these are some, I think, some of the principles that were true back then that are true now. The sophistication, the tools that you have available, the data, the systems, the tech stack has become so complex, and it's kind of microservices and little pieces of the puzzle, which is why I think it's an amazing time to be somebody that's involved in partnership related topics, ecosystem related topics. It is as valuable a skill and a role as a salesperson or a product engineer. That wasn't the case 15 years ago, right? And no offense to anybody, at some point, this used to be, you failed at sales, you don't know what to do, hey, go be a partner person. Right? I think that has completely changed. It's a skill, it's a valuable skill, you're good at it, it's business development. So that's why I've loved engaging with it. It really covers everything.
Yeah, Azia, I want to bring out the design thinker in you, and you've been associated with D School and teaching this thing. And this concept of architecting a modern ecosystem is close to you. So can you illuminate a little bit here? How do you architect ecosystems? Like, what's the 101 on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've mentioned this to you before. I'm not a huge fan of the word alliances, right? I mean, actually, VMware we were kind of strategic alliances. I've taken out the word alliances when I joined, because to me, that kind of reflects a little bit of a traditional thinking of an alliance between two companies. If you want to put it very negatively, it's people going out and having lunches and dinners, signing an agreement, doing a press release. That's kind of, when you think about an ecosystem, it is connected to even a natural organic ecosystem. It's a little bit like a spider's web, right? No single strand in the web is strong enough, but when you put it all together, it's an incredible offensive and defensive capability. Okay. And you need to think about those threads, I mean, literally up on a board, right? This company together with this company for these products provides an offensive capability for this market segment, right? It doesn't always work out that cleanly, but if you're not thinking that way, you're not architecting a system ecosystem, you're managing individual partnerships and alliances, which is a very different game. So I'm talking about, I don't play chess, not smart enough. I'm talking about a complex chess move of capabilities. And honestly, VMware has had to play that, certainly with our hyperscaler friends, with our system. I mean, you have to architect that ecosystem. That's the game to be played, right? And it's not a short-term thing. It's not a quarterly thing. It's a 2-3 year set of moves, which is why it's as close to kind of corporate strategy. So that's what I mean by architecting an ecosystem. The design thinking piece of it, for those of you that are familiar or not, I mean, it's an approach I used to teach at the Stanford Design School. It's a way to solve problems. It's a way to have what they call human-centered design, to look at problems differently, to brainstorm differently, to bring in a diverse set of people. So I'll pick on that one. So there's various components to it. I'm a huge believer in the diversity of thought, right? And that diversity of thought is especially important for this role and this function. And that comes from gender diversity, it comes from ethnic diversity, educational diversity, functional diversity. The more different skill sets of people you have in the room looking at a problem, and especially architecting a partnership, the better you'll be. If you only have the experts in there, you are by definition going to be limited by the expertise in the room, right? And so you don't want just that product expert in modern apps, or just that product expert in a certain aspect of security and cloud. You want people who don't have that background, who don't have that expertise, to come in and simply ask the question, hey, why not? Why is that not possible, right? They may not be right every step of the way, but that is very important. So that diversity of thought is very important. The other thing I'd offer of a design thinking principle that can be applied to ecosystems is there's 3 circles involved in this. There's desirability, feasibility, and viability. So feasibility is, can you build something, right? The viability is, can you build something? Feasibility, is, can you afford it, and the economics of it. And then the third circle is desirability. Almost every decision in corporate America is made by looking at all 3 circles at the same time. You'll have an engineer in the room who says, yeah, that's a great idea, but we can never build it. It'll take long, and so on and so forth. Or you'll have a finance person or a business person or some other leader. Yeah, but we could do this, but it's going to take 6 months and 3 headcount, and it's too expensive, right? And so that leads very quickly to suboptimal, unexciting decisions. Now, what I would suggest, and what design thinking approach would suggest, is first look at the desirability. And also from a human, what is the ideal solution here? What is the thing that will put a smile on your partner's face, on your CEO's face, on the customer's face? What will delight them? First, define that. Do you have a good sense of what that is? Once you have that, then you can start chipping away from it and saying, hey, okay, we would love to do this, but we can't do this because the IT systems don't talk to this and this, and there's a data issue. Or it's going to cost us a bazillion dollars. But if you start from that desirability and work backwards, you will almost always get to a better outcome than if you try and optimize all things together. So that's just kind of a way to think about any problem, if you will. I've enjoyed doing it, and I think especially in this function, it's critical.
Yeah, what a great thought there. If I get the gist of it, it's not just one move. It's like a complex set of moves that you're architecting. If you take the chess analogy, to it, and you're architecting an ecosystem, but actually you're architecting that ecosystem for a customer delight, that user-centered piece first, and then you're putting the pieces together, including your solutions, partner solutions put together, and hence you've architected a pretty amazing ecosystem at VMware. Talk a little bit of how you applied that at VMware in terms of some of the partnering changes or processes or emphasis areas that you've created there.
Yeah, I mean, as some folks may know, I joined VMware about 2 years ago. I was a senior partner at BCG, and VMware was actually a client there. So at some point they said, hey, come do this. And I was excited about it because of what Raghu, our CEO, Sumit, our president, and some of the board members had very clearly articulated that VMware has a tremendous rich history. Obviously, virtualization had built this up, but it was very clear that our future success depended to a large degree on a thriving, active, dynamic ecosystem, right? Okay, that's at the highest level. Then you need to break it up into the kinds of partnerships you're talking about. And it's an interesting dynamic. So we have a very rich, well-established channel. I mean, most of our business goes through a channel. You guys have helped us with that. The pieces of the puzzle that I kind of dived into was, on one hand, the hyperscalers. We'll talk about that. Awesome partnership with Google and Braun. The second piece was our system integrators, and I'll mention that in a second. Another piece is our tech partnership. So the SAPs, NVIDIAs, Intels of the world. The fourth is kind of our vertical and industry solutions, right? So on our hyperscaler piece of it, we have a strong view that our customers live in a hybrid cloud environment. And a hybrid is a combination of private and public cloud. And then on the public cloud side, they may decide to be multi-cloud, right? They may have multiple public clouds. They may choose one. So for us, in order to provide our customers with a seamless experience between private cloud and public cloud, we have to have a very dynamic relationship with our hyperscale partners. And look, to some degree, sometimes it's not competitive, but we may have different perspectives. Most of the time, it's very symbiotic. And so we've, whether it's on the marketplace front, we're very active on marketplaces. You talked about this, Braun talked about this. But across the board, we are far stronger in our hyperscaler engagement across the board. And that certainly, I can tell you, is a chess game, right? Because they're all kind of connected. As AWS, a great partner of ours, Microsoft, GCP, IBM, Ali Cloud, Oracle, great engagements with all of them. We, in fact, just last week had a fantastic event at VMware. It was our kind of hyperscaler day, where we brought these 6 partners together. It was fantastic, right? I mean, and we had separate streams for them and some common sessions and so on. The GSI
I remember watching, and Niti posted from your team a number of good updates.
Niti manages Microsoft, does an amazing job there. The other pieces are system integrators. And I must say that we had a good relationship with system integrators, but honestly, in our normal business with virtualization and so on, the work for SIs was there, but not that much. And we were probably punching below our weight. As we look forward, and in the last 2 years, we've dramatically increased and enhanced our relationship with SIs. Many of them have created dedicated VMware business units. Deloitte's done that, Wipro's done that, HCL's done that. And it's absolutely clear, Amit, in a world where consumption and ARR and adoption is key, these colleagues, these companies have far more impact on that topic. I mean, we may sell $5 million piece of software. One of our SI partners may have a $500 million deal and be in there for 3 years, right? We sometimes overestimate our quote unquote kind of control of the customer or management of the customer. So we've had to kind of rethink and relearn across VMware, honestly, that we need to partner with our GSI partners. And I think going forward, it's very much going to be about, how do we connect our professional services organization to our GSIs to really drive consumption and adoption. The final thing I'll mention is on the vertical side and the domain expertise. Huge proponent of that. I think most of our hyperscaler partners at GSIs go to market on a vertical basis. Now you could say, well, VMware, you're pretty low down in the stack, you're in the data center and so on. Why do you care? We do care because increasingly, while we're in modern apps, we have this product Tanzu. We care about what the workload is, right? And the workload comes from the apps. And so by definition, we now care about the apps as well. We have a very strong telco business. We have dedicated business units. We are very strong on the public sector side. And then have really developed a capability on things like financial services, retail, and healthcare, right? And I think in particular, working with our GSIs, our hyperscaler partners, that vertical expertise and that vertical go-to-market becomes critical.
Absolutely. So as you architected this ecosystem towards these solutions, I think underlying some business workflows or processes need to change. And we worked on one of them together, which is the co-innovate process. But I'm sure there is more. So can you describe what underlying end-to-end processes you had to come down to and kind of rethink as VMware again?
Yeah, I mean, by the way, and not a plug, it's just the reality. Deeply appreciate the partnership between VMware and what you guys are doing. You've been working with our colleagues on the channel side and with Tracy Ann Palmer and so on for a long period of time. More recently, you've been working with our team. We kind of on the managed services piece of it, which, by the way, we think is absolutely critical. I think there's multiple processes on the product side of things. If you look at the value chain, right? I mean, you build something, you kind of connect your product to partner products. Then you get kind of the marketing of this. Then you get to the sales piece and so on. I'd say the go-to-market piece of the puzzle, so the later piece of this, is where most of our attention has been. I think VMware has done a tremendous job on the front end, back end, depending on what you think about, on the product side and the solution integration and so on, right? Where we've been around for a while and we're very good at that. On the channel piece of it, we're also very good, right? I mean, there's always room for improvement. There's incentives, there's new technologies, approaches, and so on. What I've been focusing in on is again that GSI value chain and the co-sell piece of it, and how do we go really co-sell into the market. As you look at our hyperscalers, how do we work with their marketplaces? How do we look at what we call VMCU and incorporate this so that our sales force can also sell our hyperscaler products? So it is really, Amit, on the co-sell side and that incentive piece. I mean, a lot of the areas that you've been supporting us as well. I think a lot of the action is on that piece of it. And look, the internal IT technology, data integration, security piece of it is always slower than you'd want it to be, and always more complicated than you'd want it to be. But that's life.
Makes sense. Appreciate the partnership as well, and the entire flywheel that you're putting in place, from co-building with Solution Hub to co-selling it to managing incentives and doing it in an award-winning partner connected. This is awesome. This must be hard as well. Like, give an insider's perspective a little bit. How did you drive this change? Like, for example, MSPs is not easy. It's a change in the industry, right? So what are you doing to drive this change?
A lot of meditation and prayer. No, look, I think what is, and again, credit to Braun for articulating this. For somebody in this kind of role, working with partners is only one piece of the puzzle. And if you're honest with yourself, it's probably the easier piece of the puzzle, right? The part that you also have to have influence on and be able to architect is your internal ecosystem, right? Between marketing, sales, product, legal, and how do you, if your house is not set up to productively engage with partners, then meeting that was supposed to happen in a week happens in 3 weeks. A commitment that was made in an email changes, and I mean, there's just the noise in the system that makes partnering hard comes more from internal disparate points of view than it does with anything else, right? It's not that interface point. So I think it starts from, I'm super proud of the team that we've built, the leadership team of the world. So you have to really start with absolutely rock star people, right? I mean, our team and our HR organization sometimes complains about this. Our average seniority of people in our team is probably one of the highest in VMware, right? I mean, and then people look at you should have a senior director and they should have so many direct reports and so on. We have a lot of senior directors and directors on our team, because if you're going to manage these large partners, you have to be bloody good at what you do, and you have to be experienced. If you start kind of having a different skill set, you're going to get what you get, right? So I think it starts with the team, the quality of the team. For them to think of themselves as general managers of that relationship is super, super critical.
Right.
Then I encourage them to have a point of view, right? The role of an awesome BD person or a partner manager is not just to be an air traffic controller, connect people and so on. That's one piece of it. But I encourage our team and me to have a point of view. What should we do with Microsoft or Google or Wipro or Accenture and so on, or SAP? And then try and coalesce internally to that point of view and have a clear action plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to have a CEO, you have to have leadership, and kudos to our leadership, both on the engineering side, sales side. They recognize the importance of that ecosystem, and they've been super supportive. The journey is never done to some degree, but as you kind of look at our partners, you look at the customers, you look at what VMware has done, I'm very proud of the progress we've made.
Absolutely. And I've been speaking with your GSI partners, for example, Jason at Wipro, right? Immense partnership. And it's as they set up the business practices around it, the culture that you've set in place, the culture that he set in place, there's a kind of the business unit culture that kind of coalesces together to drive, success for both companies. So kudos on that, and fascinating to watch this evolve.
One thing I mean, if I could, just
Sure.
on Jason, and who's tremendous in leading his organization. One of the things that surprised me, and this is on measuring success, when I looked at briefing documents that I used to get, when meeting senior folks and so on, it always talked about what's in it for VMware, right? VMware has gotten this, VMware has 6% of this, and we need 7% of this, and so on.
Right.
I think that's ridiculous, right? We spend way too much time looking at who gets what slice of the pie, and nowhere near enough time on the size of the pie itself, right? I mean, it's like, 83% of zero is still zero, right? And so I think that's a very important perspective. Is it's not going from 5 million to 7 million. Look how much growth we've made. What does it take to have $100 million business? Answer that. What needs to be true to go from a $5 million business to a $100 million business, right? What needs to be true? And so we've encouraged our teams to kind of think of it that way. That doesn't mean everything that you say needs to be true will end up that way. But again, it's with that much more ambitious end in mind. The other thing which has been a big change for VMware is we need to really understand what matters to our partners. We need to understand how they measure success. There is nothing more frustrating to just talk about you. This is what's important to us. It's this revenue, it's this channel piece, it's this, that, and the other. And I've seen such disconnects over my years. And the partners don't sometimes talk about it, right? I mean, it's like, you need to be honest, transparent. If you care, say, look, you're looking at these three metrics, we're looking at these three metrics, only one of them match up. Okay, so why is that? If that's the case, you're not going to get anywhere a year from now and 2 years from now. And if it is different, talk about it, be explicit about it, either change or acknowledge that there is a fundamental difference in how you measure success, and build that into the partnership.
Well, what a terrific point. I was about to ask you, how do you measure success? But you kind of pre-answered that by, if I'm not mistaken, it's the whole pie, like the size of the pie that you're going after. Any other favorite metrics or way you measure?
Yeah, there's I mean, you and the team, and there's so many different ways to measure it. I would add a mega point, and this is in the beginning, certainly my team and some senior folks at VMware were not super happy with me, was you have to prioritize. You have to prioritize. People don't like it. People don't like being in whatever other tier of partner versus the top tier of partner and so on. But the reality is we have so many resources. More importantly, we have just an X amount of bandwidth on the engineering side, on the sales side, to deal with partnerships. And I'm a big believer in focusing on impact. Okay. Not activity. It doesn't matter how many meetings you have in a week. Like, how's the partnership going with X? Oh, it's fantastic. We had 18 meetings this week. Okay, that's great. But that's activity, right? The only way and the only thing that matters is impact. And the only way you can really have impact is by focus, right? And focus both in terms of the number of partners, and focus in terms of the set of activities for that partner. I am supremely unimpressed by a long list of threads and conversations and meetings and et cetera, et cetera. most people, most partnerships cannot focus on more than 2 to 3 things. You really can't. The things that really drive the business, the things that really people care about.
Yep.
And I think sometimes folks don't pay enough attention to that. And they think the volume of activity is a reflection of a great partnership, or the number of meetings is a reflection of the great partnership. It's much harder to sit back for 5 hours to really think deeply what is important. What are the 2 or 3 metrics that will excite both sides or 3 sides? And do we have the resources, the capability to hit this out? And feels logical, Amit, but in my experience, it's a skill that's severely underrepresented.
Yeah. So it's not about the size of the ecosystem or number of partners you can brag about. It's like the quality and the depth of the partnership and what actual impact that you've driven. So that's a really good advice. I've intuitively seen that a lot of these partnerships have that 80-20 principle. The top 20% really drive the value at the end of the day. So that kind of adds up very
So
quick.
this damn 80-20 rule, which just keeps coming back over and over, for entire life. So even though everybody, Amit, understands that's true, if you look at the time, the resources your partner team is spending on the other 80%, you'd be surprised.
Right.
And then they go ask for more headcount and more resources and so on, right? I mean, this is inside baseball, but in the 2 years I've been here, I have not asked for, except for 1 additional headcount. The size of our team has been absolutely the same. Not because I couldn't get more resources, because we didn't need it. It was a matter of focusing. It was a matter of making sure the right people are working on the right things and doing less.
Right.
And I think that's been an important piece.
Fantastic, Zia. I asked this question of Bron, and I want to ask that question of you as well. People are coming into the partnerships world, as you yourself said, it's night and day in terms of partnership as a profession. People are excited about it, they're joining it. So what advice do you have for partner professionals who are early in their career, who are driving this ecosystem-led motions in companies? Like, what would you say to them?
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, I think it's a incredible time. It's an incredible role to be associated with, and I think that has really changed, right? The pay for, the demand for ecosystem partnership alliance type roles is through the roof. So you would be choosing an amazing thing. Secondly, you have to be somebody that is able to connect the dots, right? You could have more of an engineering background, you could have more of a business background, but you have to be able to connect the dots in a very effective way, both internally within your company, with your partner, but also what's happening on the industry. So it's as much of a strategic role as it is kind of a partner management role. I think you have to be the word business development, which is one of those words, again, which can mean a lot. It can mean nothing. But I think business development is an art. It's a skill set. It's how do you convert the hopes and dreams and aspirations into something that's concrete, that has economics, has value added, and be able to see that through. Be far more ambitious than you think, right? And this is my kind of question on, we have a $10 million business. How do you make it a $100 million business? And this is not a matter of, hey, let's have stretch goals. That's a huge stretch goal. I'm just saying intellectually, what needs to be true again, right? And so be somebody that is that CEO, that GM of that relationship, and be far more aspirational, and then figure out what pieces of the puzzle that you need to do. And finally, the world is made up of human beings. Even though we had COVID, we have Zoom. Get up and go meet people. This is a relationship business. you will have hundreds of stories, and you're negotiating a contract, and you kind of pick up the phone and something's stuck, and so on and so forth. Partnerships are not between Delaware incorporated companies. Yeah. Partnerships are between the humans that are in those roles, that trust each other and have the influence and capability in their own organizations to move them. So really focus in on the human and people piece of it, with the competence and the knowledge to make the magic happen.
What a phenomenal advice. Amen to that. And Zia, we worked with VMware and your team extensively. We feel the joy as well. How we worked on co-innovation with the Solution Hub and the end-to-end piece, how we worked with the incentives piece, how we worked in all these projects. There's some, if any advice that you would have for ecosystem professionals as they are embarking on similar projects, delivering this. How would they, fund such projects? How would they make a case for it? If you have any advice on that.
Yeah, I think maybe two pieces of advice. First, again, thank you, Amit. I mean, you guys have been a phenomenal accelerator for us on our ecosystem journey. I'd say the first one is what I mentioned earlier: focus and impact. Right? Have a very high bar. Ask the tough questions. What is the focused activity? What is the end result? And is this going to have the impact you want? Right? If that is true, then you'll be far more enabled to advocate for it. The question becomes budgets and so on and so forth, where those budgets come from internally. I'm never going to have a problem getting resources either from my team or elsewhere if I can articulate with some sincerity that this is the focus, this is the impact, and this is the time frame that needs to be done. Don't make perfection the enemy of the good, well understood perspective. Do it on stages again. And again, each stage should have focus and impact as the metric, if you will. I think the amazing thing that you guys are doing is there are learnings. This is not overused phrase. This is not rocket science to some degree, right? I mean, there's a best practice on co-sell. There are things that should be in place. You need to be able to share data and information between partners. One of the things I loved about what you're doing is you are able at the field level to identify which partner sees which opportunity and so on and so forth, right? So these are best practices that you have enabled across many companies. Too many companies say, hey, no, we do it differently. I mean, this is true. You can install an SAP system. We're just unique. That's just not true, right? And so I think bringing in that perspective, showing us, what other people are doing, and then the network effect is phenomenal, right? Whether it's with Braun or Jason or AWS at Wipro, if they're on your platform, it makes it much easier for us to be on there. So that's happening, I know, and I think as that expands, it will happen. It will happen more and more.
Fantastic, Zia. What a delight talking with you. There are a lot of questions for you here, so stick around for a couple of more minutes. If you
only pick the easy ones.
Chip, I want to bring you back in. What's the community asking?
Oh, a bunch of great questions and comments. Actually, I'm going to start with a comment from Karen Fazio who's actually made the comment on LinkedIn. Great to hear that VMware supports their teams to think boldly. That allows partners to be very creative in how they bring unique opportunities to customers. So I thought that was
Karen, absolutely, and I think for the ecosystem team in particular, this has been an important kind of linchpin. But it's not just about boldly, as I said, defining impact, right? And I mean, it's unbelievably hard to pinpoint what is the impact you're going on, right? And then it has to be measurable impact, so that becomes even more exciting. But yeah, it's super key to have that perspective. Otherwise, you're just like, hey, we grew by 18%. Okay, fantastic. Or we grew by 6%. That's not going to move the needle. We need to move the needle.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, this is a long one from our friend Roland. I think the essence of it is what's changed, and you talked a little bit about this earlier. But what's changed since running GEPG at SAP in the 2000s?
So, Roland, great to hear from you. GEPG, by the way, for those who haven't heard this phrase for a while, is Global Ecosystem and Partner Group. This was a very new thing of using the word ecosystem back then. So I did a little bit of recycling, so that's fine. The AI piece of it now is obviously going to be super interesting. I've had a bunch of discussions of late with consulting firms and others. Would encourage Amit, you and Chip and others who are on here to really think about. There's obviously the sales co-pilot. Could be an ecosystem co-pilot. Finding, this is again a sales co-pilot concept, but in an ecosystem perspective is if you have, solution A from company A, solution B from company B, you've got services from a third company, and they're focused in on retail customers. So if that's the sweet spot of those products and services coming together, which companies at which stage of their evolution, which departments, etc., can you lean into, and how so there's all of those kinds of things, if you will, that become very important. So AI will change a lot of things, and the ability to enhance time to impact. By the way, way too many people focus on cost, right? The cost is important, but that's not going to drive your business. That's not going to drive growth. And so time to impact and revenue generation and new opportunities is what I believe is where the focus should always be. So Roland, in the AI piece of it is very important. The market, for those of you who remember, I helped create the first very early marketplace, or it was more of a directory. It was called the Ecosystem Hub back at SAP. And it's amazing to see the role of marketplaces, and we are very active on a couple. We're going to add another couple hopefully here soon. I think that significantly changes the game. And Amit, if I understand, VMware procured some of our work with you through the Google Marketplace, right? And so it just shows you. So I think marketplaces, reducing the cost of that transaction, increasing the time to impact, some of those changes are just fascinating.
Awesome, fantastic. Maybe one last question, Nicole. Great questions, Nicole. You've been asking questions throughout. So Zia said he doesn't like the word alliances for a partner type. How do you define partners that have historically been defined as alliances?
Nicole, it's not a partner that was called an alliance can be called a partner today, right? It's for me, it's not so much the word. I'm kind of using the word to express a different kind of relationship between two companies. So I'm just probably unfairly using that as well, but there's a historical perspective, and alliance to me is a weaker word that describes a partnership between two companies. You may do a press release, it isn't as strong, it isn't the focus of the company, but it's an alliance, it's great to have, you can put it on a website and so on. So admittedly, I'm painting that in a potentially unfair picture, if you will. For me, a partnership is stronger, it's multidimensional, and especially if you put it in the context of an architected ecosystem, then that's kind of the next level of thing, right? If you will. So yeah, there are companies that have had alliances for a long period of time. For me, partnerly, it's kind of reframing the work that needs to be done, reframing the complexity and the opportunity, and making it part and parcel of the core strategy of a company, right? The ecosystem, the channel for VMware is absolutely at the front and center. And we're coming up with our Explore event in a couple of weeks in Vegas. You will see so much of the announcements. There'll be some product announcements, there'll be some customer announcements, but still the vast majority of that momentum is around ecosystem. And you'll see stuff on AI with us as well. So hopefully that answered the question. It's more about the framing of that versus that, and how to look at it.
Yeah. Zia, this has been such a fascinating session. Thank you for giving us your insights, your time, and your energy. And you clearly focused on the right thing here today.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zia.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so this has been fantastic. Amit, shall we take a minute and kind of recap a little bit? We've put a couple a bit of a slide here together on some of the things that we heard today. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So Brian talked a lot about GenAI, which I think is really critical. And Google has been doing some amazing things with GenAI and pushing things out. But I love that trust. The focus on trust, responsibility, and accountability.
Yeah, and what I also besides that point, right, the speed at which it is happening, right. And I think when you combine speed with the ability to do it over a network, right, that compounds. And I'm just amazed at how partner ecosystems in the Gen AI world is actually much more faster, dynamic, and interdependent on each other. You don't see people doing the same stuff. You see people doing different stuff and building on each other. So people are focusing on what they do best, and they're partnering for the rest in a really nice way in this new ecosystem. And just the speed at which it is happening is amazing.
Yeah, I think I saw a tweet by Jeremiah Ouyang recently where he said there are like 70 meetings, just public meetings on AI in the Bay Area, and those are all companies and people that are getting together to partner to build solutions.
And I think Zia also talked about this. I'm just showing this comment from Pallab, for example. We didn't get to ask Zia this question because of time. We wanted to end up at 10. He had a meeting to go to. But the idea that he talked about these kinds of co-pilots in every industry in terms of especially leveraging these offerings that SIs are building, for example, together with VMware as an example, with data partners, right? That's really, really exciting to see.
I also love the you cannot measure what you cannot see, right? Track and measure this. I think that's
a quotable quote from the event, right? Yeah, and I really, from her values, right? Looking at the end in mind, what does good look like, and aspiring and taking ownership and driving this. In fact, amazing career advice for partnership leaders. There's so much vacuum there to kind of imagine what the potential could be, and just take ownership and leadership and be the partnership leader you are. There's an excellent community of partnership leaders that we'll go to Catalyst soon. And I think we should take those ideas there. And Workspan has partnered with partnership leaders again to create an ecosystem track where we have, again, ecosystem leaders sharing what good looks like, and then challenging each one of us to just take the initiative and get it done.
Yeah, really excited about Catalyst coming up in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Great session. By the way, I changed my shirt
to Kosel.
Go this way. There we go.
Kosel to crush it. I see it. Yeah.
Kosel to crush it.
And also from the announcement point of view with Bron, very quickly, delight to work with the Google team. We've been working well together. The first few partners are the data and AI partners, rightly so. There's so much happening there. And as we build more together with Google, right, the whole idea is that what Zia ended up with, it's really about the strategic ecosystem you're architecting. It's neither one partner nor the other. Just look at VMware's case. They have to work well with Google, but also with AWS, also with Microsoft, and also with GSIs. And I think that idea that led to my first piece of the announcement, that you need one Kosel platform. You need to crush Kosel, like your t-shirt says. And it has to go beyond one partner to multiple hyperscalers, and must include GSIs and must include ISVs and tech companies. must include companies like Cisco, for example, who are themselves innovating on core cell, right? So when you think about architecting an ecosystem that Zia talked about from a design thinking point of view, this is an essential tool to kind of underpin the ecosystem with and start with, because people are looking for a starting point, and I think we talked a little bit about that.
Yeah, yeah, and having the data to be able to measure what's actually happening.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. And I really like this analogy that it is not optimizing a single alliance and making an announcement or kind of saying, hey, what can we get in the short term?
Mm-hmm.
Zia really mentioned, architecting an ecosystem like a chess strategy. You want to go after that solution, that transformation. This is the ecosystem you architect for it, and you will have a much better response as a result.
Yeah,
I think that was very strategic.
yeah. Gosh, fantastic! I think maybe should we wrap it there, Amit?
Yeah, we would love if you move to the next slide, Chip. Take this survey, please. And I think from the two announcements we made, we have the marketplace accelerator now. So if you're listing on cloud marketplaces, do look us up. We are also offering partner operation services through ourselves and our ecosystem partners. So I think there's been a lot of ecosystem feedback around this, that we should bring in not just the Workspan solution, but a whole partnering operations and business consulting around it. So people who are following us, please give us a shot in that partner ops space, and through our service partners as well, adding to that. So we'll have, hopefully in a future EBS, Chip, we can ourselves bring our key services partners as well, who are offering these services back to us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Great job, Amit. You've been going the whole time.
I love this community. I love partnerships.
Yeah. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you all for joining.
Yeah, with that, I think thank you all. Exactly. Just as Amit's saying, thank you all for joining, and we will see you at Catalyst in a couple weeks in Denver, and then our next EBS. I think we're actually starting to put something together for early October. So watch for that, and we are really excited about the lineup for our next EBS. Okay.
Absolutely. Take care. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.